Hi guys, I'm Adam Wilborn from WhatCulture.
And I'm Andy Murray from WhatCulture, and this morning I've got for you very lucky people an exclusive non-spoiler update on WWE's WrestleMania tapings, and on top of that, a backstage update on Samoa Joe's WWE status.
Plus, is WrestleMania 36 about to be spoiled, and an end date for Tommaso Ciampa versus Johnny Gargano has been confirmed. This is the news.
But we're going to kick things off by talking WrestleMania. So, an anonymous source who was backstage at the WWE WrestleMania tapings last night somewhere in Florida, whether it's the Performance Center, whether it's one of these other venues, reached out to WhatCulture last night with a bunch of information on how the tapings are going. Now, none of this is spoilerific. We're not going to ruin the show for you. We're just going to give you the lowdown on how things are progressing. So, per this source, WWE were frantically working against the clock. They were pounding in as much content as they can, and they're trying to hit that deadline of 11 p.m. on Thursday. But we spoke about that a little bit yesterday, and we kind of figured that was the case. That being said, I've got some new information from this source as well, who claims that WWE were still working on a big cinematic fight, and that's a direct quotation, into the late hours of the evening and potentially the small hours of the morning as well. They'd actually spent all day working on and preparing props and a specially designed set for this fight, which sounds very interesting indeed. We're going to get something wacky by the sounds of things at WrestleMania. Now, Triple H is apparently the one overseeing all this. Vince McMahon has very little input, if any at all, and performers are being granted increased leeway while doing this thing to kind of improvise their own lines, improvise their own actions and spots and so forth. They're doing a lot of retakes, a lot of second shots and so forth, trying to get this thing right, and they're putting a lot of time and effort into this. But despite that, we also have a report from Brian Alvarez, Wrestling Observer Radio, talking about how things are going. He says that within WWE they are very confident of hitting the 11 p.m. deadline, and they also have already taped most of the big matches. So most of your headliners are already in the can, those won't be a problem, and it sounds like everything's going to be fine. It sounds like the stay-at-home order that kicks in tonight at 11 p.m. may not be a factor.
Very interesting this, that they are just pounding out as many matches as they can. No real surprise. But yeah, by far the most intriguing part of all this is the lack of Vince McMahon involvement. I mean, what is he doing? It's not like he sleeps or anything. So to hear the fact that Triple H is there and that they are letting wrestlers improvise, I would sense that any word of that would have Vince McMahon sprinting back to the set and convincing himself he can be in 3 different places at once to watch 3 different matches go down. I'm astonished by this.
It's mental, isn't it? Particularly with regards to this, and again, big cinematic fight. We've heard all kinds of stuff about WWE hosting. I believe the word we used yesterday was zany matches. We've got the Boneyard match, we've got Cena versus The Fiend, which is apparently going to be like a House of Horrors thing. WrestleMania this year is going to be wild. It's going to be weird. Some people, by the sounds of things, are going to hate it. Others are going to revel in it. Others are going to love it. I just can't wait to see how it comes out. And this report has just filled me with even more intrigue.
Yeah, as much as I'm not best pleased that WrestleMania 36 is going ahead in its current incarnation, I am fascinated to see what it's going to look like next weekend. And I've just realised, as I said all that, and you explained about, the House of Horrors, and it brought me flashbacks of the Ultimate Deletion. I've just realised Vince McMahon doesn't have to be there, because when he watches it in the production meeting, if he doesn't like it, he'll just get Michael Cole to bury it before it happens.
Yeah. He's got prior for that, so.
But speaking of WrestleMania 36, this sort of rolls into our second story. You mentioned there, Andy, that Brian Alvarez has been giving updates, despite the fact we assume there's not many people there to give those sort of updates. I sense if stories leak, they can probably point to about 3 or 4 different people and go, well, it was one of you.
Yeah.
But there's speculation arising online about potential WrestleMania 36 spoilers. Of course, whenever any show is taped, whether it be TV or pay-per-view, there is the chance that it's going to get spoiled in advance, which would be a real shame for WWE's biggest show of the year. And WrestleVotes even tweeted saying, I will have access to WrestleMania results. I will not be posting them. Do not worry. And whilst that is reassuring, and that's a bit of a weird flex, but okay from WrestleVotes, it's concerning that if people are going to be made aware of WrestleMania results, and decide, you know what, sod it, I'm just going to post spoilers online, people are going to find out about the results from WWE's biggest show of the year in advance, which would just ruin the whole thing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would absolutely suck. I mean, the worrying thing about all these situations, like the Alvarez report, this WrestleVotes tweet, shows that the information is out there somewhere. And we are only one tweet or one report away from the whole show just kind of getting spoiled, which would be a real shame. Now, the thing with it is, it's a really difficult situation, this, if you're a reporter and so forth, because you don't want to spoil anyone's fun with the biggest show of the year, but at the same time, if your job is to report news, well, that unquestionably is news. It leaves people in a tricky situation. I think with us, you know, if we have to report anything, we will make sure it's clearly labeled. We don't want to ruin the biggest show of the year, the show that most people look forward to more than anything else. I personally hope that they don't come our way, and I personally hope that none of it hits the internet, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough.
Exactly. For the most part, next week, I'm just going to be sitting here going, la 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 la, please don't tell me anything. I already feel bad about the fact that we've already spoilt the finish to Edge versus Randy Orton. Randy Orton is going to throw grit in Edge's eyes and hit him with an RKO.
There we go. Spoiled that exclusively yesterday, in fact. Shall we move on? Shall we talk Samoa Joe? Guy's been out of action for a while. He's had a rough 6 months, but we got a new report from Lords of Pain here that says that while Joe is technically cleared to return to the ring, there's currently no word on whether or not he'll be brought into WWE this week, for the tapings that will take WWE all the way through to the Raw after Mania. His suspension is expired. It was for 30 days, violating the wellness policy late February. He's good to go in that regard, but his injury status is a little bit cloudier. Now, this guy, this poor guy, man, last year he was ruled onto the commentary booth. He was hurt. He had to work on he was great at commentary, but he wasn't in the ring. He wasn't doing his thing. He then came back and he was in that Kevin Owens, Seth Rollins storyline for a while. Then he gets concussed in January. Then he gets concussed again, shooting a commercial in February. Then he gets hit with the wellness policy suspension. So Joe's had a rough 6 months. Things aren't going particularly well for him. Not been particularly fortunate. I just hope the guy can get healthy and get back on our screens, because he's still an immense performer.
Yeah, do you know what? I think keeping him away from all this right now, considering the manicness, the urgency of everything that's going on around WrestleMania, might be the best case for everyone. Plus, and we're only speculating right now because we don't really know what's going to happen following, as you mentioned there, the Raw after WrestleMania, because that's all they're taping up to. If there is still a lockdown in place, if there's a delay, if there's, you know, a sort of season finale for WWE and then they come back within a couple of weeks or maybe even a month, or who knows, let's be perfectly honest, it might be best for people like Samoa Joe to just have that break. Yes, he's been off, as you mentioned, with the wellness policy violation, but he's been dinged up a lot over the last 6 months, and I think everyone will agree that aside from the mad few days we've got right now of tapings, this time away, this break, even if it is on lockdown, is going to be so beneficial to the wrestling industry as a whole, and a lot for wrestlers who, you know, as we all know, kind of just usually have to work a little bit hurt for the majority of the time. Samoa Joe is a phenomenal performer. He's been so unlucky over the last half a year or so, as you said, Andy. So I think keep him off TV, and then when we come back, his can be one of the biggest pops when he finally returns to action.
Well said.
Right, let's move on and talk a little bit about NXT, because on last night's episode, Triple H was there, of course, and it was to deal with the ongoing issues between Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa, and a date has been set for their final blow-off match. It's in 2 weeks' time, April 8th. No location confirmed as of yet. It was booked on last night's show. Triple H got them both in the ring and said, look, this has gone on far too long. You are tearing each other apart. You're tearing the Performance Center apart. So they're going to meet in an empty building with only a ring and a referee to decide when the match is over. As I said, that will take place on April 8th. They were, of course, originally going to blow off their whole feud at last year's WrestleMania weekend at TakeOver New York. That didn't happen, of course, unfortunately, because of Tommaso Ciampa's injuries. Look, this is a feud that's gone on and on and on, and it looks like it's going to end in 2 weeks with a loser leaves NXT match.
Yeah, and it sounds very much like if either of them find a way to lay hands on each other ever again, they'll both be the hell out of there. So, high stakes, long-running storyline. Story started really back in 2016, of course, with the Cruiserweight Classic and them coming in together, and So much backstory, so much stuff to play off. This is something that a lot of people have been waiting a long, long time for. The best part of half a decade. That's crazy. But it's coming. It's 2 weeks away. The match itself sounds kind of wacky. Big brawl around an empty building. They're going to destroy that place like they did the PC the other week. And the wording of it kind of leads me to believe that it might not even be like a regular pinfall match. It sounds like the referee's just going to decide when it's over. So something mental's going to happen.
Absolutely. Do you read anything into the fact that that wasn't the last moment of NXT this week? It was, of course, a sort of a sort of interruption from, one would assume, Killer Cross.
Interesting move to have that kind of close the show and come pretty much packaged with the Gargano Ciampa thing. Perhaps with the reports we've heard that Cross is going to get like a fast track push and he's going to skip the line a bit and take a faster track up to the top of the rankings. Maybe he'll be slotted straight into a feud with whoever wins that Gargano Ciampa match. That seems kind of logical. Okay guys, pardon the interruption for just a second. Andy here flying solo because a news story has just broken since me and Adam recorded the news earlier today. We've got another one to add in, courtesy of Dave on Wrestling Observer Radio, that just came out a few minutes ago. Adam's away doing a podcast, you got me and my own, but it revolves around Brodie Lee. If you watched last night's AEW Dynamite, you will have seen that the Exalted One segment was basically a big rib on Vince McMahon. They were doing the whole daddy eats first thing. He was insisting that he finish his meal before everyone else. He was wearing a suit. He was kind of talking a little bit like him in terms of the words he was using. And then he sent Alex Reynolds out of the room for sneezing. And we all know if there's one thing Vince McMahon hates, it's sneezing. So Dave was talking about this on Wrestling Observer Radio, and he said that people within WWE are not happy at all about what went down here. Now, he doesn't mention Vince specifically, but it's very much insinuated the parody has not landed well in WWE. It follows on, of course, from the previous week when Brodie Lee was unveiled and spoke about Christopher Daniels not being the first out-of-touch old man who'd ever doubted him. So it looks very much, at the moment, like the Exalted One all along was a Vince McMahon kind of parody act. Dave also mentions that at last night's Dynamite tapings, they shot a whole bunch of footage, not just for next week's episode of Dark, not just for last night's Dynamite, sorry, I'm all over the place, but for future episodes of Dynamite presumably as well. So AEW, like WWE, is combating the current situation by getting as much footage in the can as possible. We reported about that earlier this week, and now we know for sure. Either way, though, the Brodie Lee thing is the big talking point here, so, go off and fire your hot takes down in the comment section.
Right, let's move on to your Twitter questions at WhatCulture WWE, of course, if you want to get in touch with us. First question comes from a legend known as Eric Vasquez. Eric says, with everything happening and the way WrestleMania will be presented this year, is it safe to assume next year's WrestleMania may become the biggest ever?
I mean, it might, man. It might. We're talking 2 days in a row in that massive stadium that they're building in Inglewood in California. Could be insane. I mean, they're going to feel like, WWE especially, Vince McMahon is such a macho chest-beating guy that he's going to think, oh, pal, we've been undermined here. We really got to go big hereafter. So I can absolutely see them going daft. 2 7-hour shows, all the legends you can think of. Steve Austin in a cyber suit so he doesn't hurt himself. All kinds of nonsense. I can definitely see it.
Yeah, I'm already, as soon as I saw this tweet, already so excited for WrestleMania 37. And we're over a year away. WrestleMania going Hollywood, of course. I can imagine some sort of washed up actors battle royal going down.
Oh, get David Arquette in there, man. That's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. Come on. Macaulay Culkin, he cancelled his trip this year. Book him next year.
Honestly, let us know in the comments who you'd like to see in the washed up actors battle royal. Book it, Vince. Second question today comes from Angela Dawn,
legend,
who says, are you becoming a fan of promos done in empty arenas? The wrestlers seem more relaxed and are not repeatedly interrupted by crowd chants. For example, I believe the promo Seth Rollins did on Raw this week was his best to date. Really good point that from Angela.
Yeah, it's definitely given performers the chance to cut a different promo, a more intimate promo, a promo where the words have more time to just kind of hang, giving them extra weight because there's no crowd noise, there's no chants and distracting stuff, as you mentioned. I don't necessarily think it's like a change for the better, but these promos have been tremendous. For me, I don't think there's anything better than like a red-hot live crowd bouncing off the performer and back and forth and the dynamic that creates. But this is a tremendous compromise. The Randy Orton one this week was brilliant as well. The Edge one last week. They're doing really good things. They're improvising. They deserve all the credit for that.
Yeah, Bray Wyatt seems to work fantastically well in this scenario. Pinteresque sort of pauses and what have you. I love them. Like you say, I wouldn't want them to be completely replaced when it comes to promos once this all blows over. But I like the difference between the two. And I really hope that this sorry state of affairs finally means the death of the what chant.
Oh God, yes. And we are awesome whenever that comes out. Just stuff like that. Get lost.
Nick Van Haver gives us the final question of the day. Nick asks, do you guys think that Matt Hardy will be AEW heavyweight champion at some point in his time there? I certainly think he deserves it.
I don't think he will, because I don't think that Matt Hardy is an attraction on the level of a Chris Jericho or a Kenny Omega. And he's also not a guy that they've invested time into building up like Hangman Page. I think Matt Hardy at 45 years old, I think his world title window has closed. I think that closed in Impact. I think he'll be a fun addition. I think he'll be good. I was a bit worried by him teleporting last night, but the rest of the segment was really good. He's going to be a fun addition. I think he's going to be in and around the main event scene, but as a world champion, I think for the first year or so, it's going to be Jericho, it's going to be Moxley, it's going to be Kenny, maybe Page. I think that'll be your scene for a while until they build other younger guys up. No disrespect to Matt Hardy at that age, he's still such a creative guy, so charismatic, and he still has plenty to offer, just not a world champion.
Yeah, very weird to watch Matt Hardy do his own impression of Space Invaders last night. But I do like Vanguard 1 giving medical updates. I agree, Andy. I don't think that he's going to win the world title. He may well challenge for it, but if you listen to his chat with Chris Jericho, I've banged on about this podcast all week long. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast as well, What Culture Wrestling, on either iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from. But you listen to his chat with Jericho, and he doesn't seem like he wants a world title win. He's just more excited about being able to express his creativity. So whilst I think they may well utilise him for a title challenge, I think he's got, let's not say bigger fish to fry, different fish to fry.
Weirder fish to fry.
Exactly. Right, let's move on to today's and finally, and any of you with elderly relatives who use social media will know that sometimes they can get a little bit confused. This is akin to that. Massive shout out yet again to Hangman Page. We've seen this happen in the past accidentally. This is probably slightly more deliberate from Hangman Page. I've even seen Wayne Rooney once threaten himself on Twitter. I assume he was trying to threaten some child or something, but he was like, listen here, you little kid, I'll beat the crap out of you, at Wayne Rooney. Brilliant. Anyway, Hangman Page last night replied to his own tweets from December 2019. Then he tweeted, folks, I am not on Dynamite tonight. I will be at home drinking whiskey. And last night, when he of course wasn't on the show, he informed everyone of that by quote tweeting that tweet, his own tweet, as I say, with the words, me too. I love this character.
He's great, isn't he? And he's really good on Twitter as well. How many wrestlers are this good on Twitter? You can count maybe 3 of them. This is great stuff.
Wonderful, wonderful stuff. Guys, let this be a lesson to you. Don't drink and tweet. Right, let us know your thoughts on that and all of today's news stories in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as I said earlier, subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts. Myself and paid NXT shill Michael Hamflett and paid AEW shill Michael Sidgwick will be reviewing the Wednesday Night War a little bit later on today. Plus, let us know your thoughts and Twitter questions on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. And watch there, follow both of us. You can follow Andy Murray at
Andy H. Murray. The H stands for Harissa.
Right, well, you can follow me at Adam Wilborn. Follow us all at WhatCultureWWE. My thanks to Andy Murray. Thank you for watching, and we will see you soon.